Here we have this week's Tech A video newsletter on Monday the 12th of November 2007. Starting off with CAC. As we can see, and as we can see with many of the stocks, the indices that we're looking at in this week's Tech A, we're looking at the CAC, the DAX, the Dow, FTSE, Nasdaq, and Nikkei. So we'll start off with the CAC. The reason why I briefly scanned through them like that was to show you that the market's been incredibly bearish. Once again, it's one of the things we've noted over some time. There was a possibility of a breakout, but given the markets were very bearish anyway, the bounce was just a reaction to the Fed's announcement. Once again, it's waned, and we've seen a huge amount of shorting in the markets. So much so, in fact, that it's broken through some recent supports. With the CAC 40, we've got a support just around about 5,630, which it's broken to. Next support for the CAC, next real support, next nice strong support, is around about 5,430. So there's an opportunity there for it to even fall a bit further, but it could find some support at around about the top of this point of these candles here, that bearish candle there. So at the moment we're likely to see a trading range within this range, which is quite a large range. But needless to say, we're going to get a lot of erratic movement, quite a thin market around about this price line that we have here. Further falls more than likely, certainly to this point of support. Given the fact that the CAC and many of the others are just breaking through supports, then we need to sort of reevaluate it once it hits this support or reaches that support, because there's opportunities there still for small bounces that are likely to happen. And but the predominant overall consensus with many of the indices is still one of a very bearish one. So we'll move now on to the DAX. The DAX is one of the only few that probably hasn't suffered as badly. It's consolidated around about 700-800. There was a time not so long ago when the CAC and the DAX and what have you would pretty much mirror each other. Certainly the CAC would follow the DAX. More lately, we've seen a lot of changes with the CAC and the DAX, and that they're not mirroring each other as much as they used to. So we've got a support around about 700-800 for the DAX. Remember that these supports are just general points where there's a change in sentiment, so we're likely to see further support at or around 700-800 for the DAX. With it consolidating quite a bit over this current point, we're likely to see more consolidation, but what it is doing is it's building support at that level, so we're likely to see more of that, and a possible return up to a ceiling of 8,000 over this coming week. But we have seen over the last week just periods of consolidation. The Dow Jones suffered greatly not so long ago. We've got these huge bearish candles here. There is support. There's 2 points of support for Dow. Got one there and one there. These are the nearby ones. One at 12,600. One at around about 13,150, which is pretty much where we are at the moment. We'd like to see a very thin market. If we get a thin market, there's a good opportunity for a bounce. That bounce, and a bounce is basically for the uninitiated, is where we look for a stock to reach a support and it for it to bounce up. We're likely to see it land sort of between the midpoint, so somewhere region of around 13,250, the midpoint being the middle of this line between these two supports and resistances. So that's the Dow. Moving on now to the FTSE. FTSE, not so surprisingly, copying pretty much what's happening with the Dow. We do have support at around about 6,300, which is pretty much where it is at the moment. Similar effect, therefore, to what we're going to see with the Dow. If the Dow does it, the FTSE will follow, so we can expect to see something towards a thinning market with the FTSE and the possibility of a bounce. Certainly don't expect anything massive with either of them, though. And now moving on to the Nasdaq. Nasdaq, not so surprisingly, too, is reaching a point of support around about 1250. Do have that support. There's a thin market, or we need to see a thin market. I don't think we're probably going to see it that much with the Nasdaq. Probably going to see it rest between round about these lines and a possibility of it moving within a lower resistance, lower consolidation. If it breaks this, clearly we're likely to see it move down towards this line and then a consolidation within that range. And now finally onto the NIC. Huge drops, massive falls with the NIC. Possibility of support at 15,500, 15,500, maybe even a little bit higher than that, but you know, there's an opportunity there for a bounce. If it does land at this point, there really is a good opportunity there for quite a healthy bounce, several hundred points. As ever with trading something, pretty much with any of the indices, you would use a very wide stop. You look to trade the indices, certainly not on an intraday basis. If you're using spreads or anything highly geared like that, need to check your the spreads that you're paying, because trading intraday with those could prohibit that, certainly with spreads, financial spreads, or spread betting, or CFDs. They can have a nasty habit of eating up any sort of intraday profit you're likely to make on very short-term trades. So it's always a good idea to sort of place a wide stop, certainly a guaranteed stop loss as well if you're using those, because that protects you even further. So that is this week's Tech A video, and we'll be back next week with another one. Thanks a lot.